ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वापदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पादान सहगण ललित श्री विशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुस्तुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते येसु भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी के नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो धीरये नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिके मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणाम्। I offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual master, the deliverer of the fallen souls. His mercy turns the dumb into eloquent speakers and enables the lame to cross the mountain. Today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, third canto status quo, chapter 9, Brahma's prayers for creative energy, and we'll be reading text number 24. So I seek the blessings of all the Vaishnavas. I seek forgiveness for any transgressions I may commit. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Nabi Rudar Iha Sato Ambasi Yasya Pumsho Vijnana Shaktair Aham Asam Ananta Shakte Rupam Vichitram Idam Asya Vivar Vivarnito Me Ma Rishishta Nigamasya Gari Visarga. So we'll go word by word. Nabi to the from the navel lake. Iha in this millennium. Satah lying. Ambasi in the water. Yasya one whose. Pumsha of the personality of Godhead. Vijnana of the total universe. Shakti energy. Aham I. Asam was born. Ananta unlimited. Shakti of the powerful. Rupam form. Vichitram variegated. Idam this. Asya is. Vivartinaha manifesting. May unto me. Ma may not. Resista vanish. Nigamasya of the Vedas. Garim of the sounds. Visargaha vibration. Translation. The Lord's potencies are innumerable. As he lies down in the water of devastation, I was born as the total universal energy from the navel lake in which the lotus sprouts. I am now engaged in manifesting his diverse energies in the form of the cosmic manifestation. I therefore pray that in the course of my material activities, I may not be deviated from the vibration of the Vedic hymns. Purport by D.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Every person engaged every person engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord in this material world is prone to so many material activities. And if one is not strong enough to protect himself against the onslaught of material affection, he may be diverted from the spiritual energy. In the material creation, Brahma has to create all kinds of living entities with bodies suitable to their material conditions. Brahma wants to be protected by the Lord because he has to contact many vicious living entities. An ordinary Brahmana may fall down from Brahma Tejas or the power of Brahminical excellence due to his association with many fallen conditioned souls. Brahma, as the supermost Brahman, is afraid of such a fall down, and therefore he prays to the Lord for the protection. This is a warning for one and all in the spiritual advancement of life. Unless one is sufficiently protected by the Lord, he may fall down from his spiritual position. Therefore, one has to pray constantly to the Lord for protection and blessing to carry out one's duty. Lord Chaitanya also entrusted his missionary work to his devotees and assured them of his protection against the onslaught of material affection. The path of spiritual life is stated in the Vedas to be like the edge of a sharpened razor. A little inattentiveness may at once create havoc and bloodshed, but one who is completely surrendered soul always seeks protection from the Lord in the discharge of his entrusted duties, has no fear of falling into material contamination. So, this is a series of verses that we are reading about Brahma making prayers to the Lord before he can start creation. In fact, this particular chapter itself is named, this chapter itself is named as Brahma's prayers for creative energy. Okay, so just 1 second. When you look at the Brahma's prayers for creation, it's so nicely structured, even though Brahma is speaking extempore. There's so much knowledge. We see this even when there are prayers from Kunti Devi or, Prahalad, so many other devotees. All the prayers, though it is coming out emotionally and even extempore, there is a structure to it. Here in this chapter, you can see that the first 5 verses where Brahma is speaking, he's speaking about the Lord's supreme form. After that, he's speaking about the predicament of the conditioned souls. Then, Lord's reciprocation with the various devotees. So, the conditioned souls are in a predicament, but the Lord is also reciprocating. He reciprocates, differently for non-devotees, and he reciprocates differently for devotees. And it's explained why so. Then, Brahma has also given his obeisances. The next 14 to 19, he has given obeisance. And he has said, Lord, you're so great, and he has glorified. And now, from 22 to 25, he's making requests. If you take a look at it, even when we go to some, uh, powerful person, what do? We first inquire. After that, we glorify. And after that only, we ask our request. The requests come at the end. They never come at the beginning. You even provide gifts, you create that ambience. And then when everything is comfortable, you do the request. The same thing is happening here. This is the Supreme Lord from whom Brahma has been created. And then, Brahma has realized that he is the firstborn and he needs to do whatever he has to do. So he's talking about empowering himself. Like he's asking the Lord, you've empowered me, now please provide me the protection. There is anxiety. you know. So if we go back one chapter to the chapter 8, what did we read? We read about manifestation of Brahma from Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. Now, here Brahma is referring to the navel lake. So what is this navel lake? And what is so special about it other than the fact that Brahma has come out of it? It is, let us just quickly glance through the last chapter. Now, Garbhodakashayi Vishnu is laying down for 1,000 yuga cycles in the water of dissolutions containing the jivas within him. So he is in Yoga Nidra. And with the Lord's glance, the subtle matter of creation sprouted from the Lord's navel in the form of the lotus bud. So this lotus bud is containing all the karmic activities that are to happen, and it becomes in the form of a lotus bud and it grows out. Then Brahma takes birth on the lotus. So what happens? The lotus, blooms, opens up, then there is Brahma. He is born out of the lotus from the navel of the Lord. He born out. Then what happens? Brahma glances in the four directions, thus getting four heads. It's very clearly explained in that chapter. Then what happens? He's sitting there, everything is dark. He now goes around the lotus. There is nothing he can discover. Then he climbs down, long years. He climbs down, then he goes around, to find the bottom of the lotus stem. He cannot find the bottom of the lotus stem. He finds the navel lake. He goes around the navel lake. He tries to search to find the origin. He cannot do that also. Then he comes back to the top of the lotus, and then what he does? He sits down and meditates. He does tapasya. So the one thing that we need to understand in spiritual life is tapasya. Without doing tapasya, austerities, the Lord will not reveal himself. That is the only way we can gain the love of the Lord. Bhakti or whatever else we want to do, everything involves austerity. Austerity is one single thread that runs through all the types of Ashtanga Yoga and Bhakti. So, Brahma meditates on the Lord, and finally there is light. When the light comes, the glorious form of Garbhodakashayi Vishnu is given. There is this beautiful, mountain, coral mountain, and then there is also the grandeur of the Lord's body, huge. So the crystal lake, you can imagine if Brahma has to climb down the stem and it takes so many years. If Brahma has to go around the lotus petals and it has to take so many years, and then also swim around in that lake, you can imagine the size of this. The body of the Lord itself is humongous. It is so huge. And then in that there is this lake. If you pause for a moment, we all live in North America. There are these three great lakes, and they are supposed to be so huge, one of the biggest on planet Earth. But those are nothing when compared to the lake that Brahma is mentioned. This lake is in the causal ocean. It's in the body of the Lord, but this is the lake which can hold the entire universe. So he mercifully now, what does Brahma do? He mercifully, uh, falls down at the lotus feet of the Lord and acknowledges, and then he prays to the Lord. So those prayers are still continuing. And in these prayers, the Lord Brahma is expressing anxiety. Why? Because in the spiritual world, there is no anxiety. It is called Vaikuntha. Whereas in the material world, there is anxiety. Everything, every living entity will have an anxiety, and Brahma is no exception. Even Brahma is not spared from anxiety. That is why Brahma is having that anxiety. So this lotus stem that we are talking about is very special. What is happening? There is the spiritual form of the Lord, and here Brahma is in the material form. Even though he's mostly Vedas and subtle, but he's still in the material world, material body, and then This lotus stem is the only thing that connects. But the key point to understand here is even Brahma is not spared of anxiety, and that is the reason why Brahma is praying. Like in yesterday and day before yesterday classes, the Prabhus were describing so nicely. You know, uh, Sometimes it is the first day of Brahma's birth and creation, whereas the other times it could be just continuation, another day of Brahma. It doesn't matter. But Brahma has this anxiety and it never goes away. It is always there, and in a way it is healthy because every time before undertaking his duty, he's praying to the Lord. He's aware that if he does something, uh, you know, then it's easy to get attached. This particular verse is all about attachment, getting attached. So if you look at a couple of chapters in the front, we will also see that Brahma is going to start creation. When he starts creation, what happens? The first thing that Brahma creates is the five features of ignorance. Tama, Moha, Mahamoha, and Tamishra, and Andatamisha. What are these? Tama is darkness about self-knowledge or self-deception, ignorance of Swarupa. Then Moha, illusory body conception, forgetfulness of one's real identity. Mahamoha, false proprietorship of enjoyable objects, that is possessiveness. Tamishra, anger upon frustration, where one's enjoyment is obstructed. And Andatamishra is unconsciousness state brought about by the anger of sense of death. So Brahma creates these five objects, features of ignorance. And then what happens? He feels that he has created sinful, you know, uh, items. So he starts feeling low and he starts meditating. After meditation for a very long time, what he does? Brahma comes up and he creates the four Kumaras. When he creates the four Kumaras and they don't want to grow up, they don't want to, populate these material planets with their progeny and they walk away, this causes anger in them. See how Brahma, even though he has prayed to the Lord, these are examples of how Brahma gets associated with material nature. Now he becomes angry. Out of that anger is born Rudra. This child is born, and the child is actually, crying. And in its cry, it is asking, you are my, Dhata. Now tell me what my name is, and tell me all my details. What are the places that are designated for me and stuff like that. So Brahma pacifies the child and says, you are the Surashreshta, or the leader of demigods. You will be named Rudra. There will be 11 residences for you: heart, senses, air of life, sky, air, water, fire, earth, sun, moon, and austerities. Then you will have 11 names: Manu, Manu, Manisha, Mahan, Shiva, Ratadwaja, Ugra, Reta, Bhava, Kala, Vamadeva, and Dhrutavrata. You will have 11 wives called Rudranis. Dhi, Dhruti, Rasala, Uma, Niyut, Shupti, Ila, Ambika, Airavata, Swadha, and Diksha. So, whatever the baby has asked, now Brahma has given all of that, and then he asks Rudra to go and create progeny. Now, when we give instructions, we need to give complete instructions. And somewhere the instructions that Brahma was giving to Lord Rudra was not sufficient. So Rudra goes and he starts creating these demonic creatures who are now going to destroy the very creation that Brahma is creating. So Brahma now goes back to Rudra and says, Rudra, stop your, progenies. We don't want to do this. We don't want to destroy what I just started to create. So go and start doing meditation. So Rudra goes away and he goes into meditation. So we will also see so many other things like, the Vak incident where Brahma falls for his own daughter and stuff like that. So every time what happens when Brahma gets either associated or, makes fall down, all of this happens, he is either seeking apology from the Lord or he's casting away his body. So when you what we understand is when he casts away his body, then there is a different Brahma who comes into that place. So we can understand fall down is not just for mere human beings. It can even happen to somebody like Brahma. And what we learn out of this is, as long as we are in, the protection of the Lord and we are actively, consciously praying for the Lord's protection, then we'll be protected. Now, I also want to bring up the story of Ajamil. Ajamil also is a very pious Brahmana. He's following everything, doing everything properly. But like how in this verse Prabhupada is saying, it is, practice, the spiritual practice is a sharpened razor. You're walking on it, and even a little slip can cause sweat and bloodshed. So this Brahmana, who is so pious, he happens to see, a prostitute being enjoyed by a bandit. And that is enough for him to give up all that he has done, all his knowledge, everything gets covered. Now he's possessed with the lustful intent of enjoying that particular prostitute. What he does, he gives up everything, all his pious methods. Then he goes after her, and then he does, lot of unholy things, very brutal stuff, and he's trying to keep her happy. Many, many years pass away. Then he has named his various sons in different ways, but by providence, his last son, at the very end of his life, what he does, he names the last one as Narayan. And then death is nearing him. Yamadutas come towards him. Then in fear, he calls out for his youngest son Narayana. Whereas what happens is the lords, the Vishnu Dutas, they hear and they come down. They fight with the Yamadutas and they send away the Yamadutas. And then Ajamil realizes the mistake he has done all his life. He gives up his family life at that point of time. He goes away, I believe, to Kashi or Banaras. I forget that part of the story. And then he spends the rest of his life in the in the service of the Lord. So I will stop there. Just quick summary. Brahma here is feeling that anxiety and he's trying to, he's actually praying to the Lord so that he may be protected. It's the same for us every step of our life. Anything that we are doing, we need to be praying to the Lord so that we don't fall into the affection of material life. Thank you, everyone. I will stop here. If anyone has any questions or any discussions, please bring it up.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Very nice lecture, Prabhu, about seeking protection from the Lord at every step. And I also liked all the steps that you outlined about Brahma and creation process and all the problems he had to face. So several good points. Thank you for the class, Prabhu.
Thank you. I have a hard stop at 8 o'clock. So if there are no other questions, go ahead, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Sorry I was late. I was asking then regarding Ajamil, one may ask, like, why did the Lord not protect him? Maybe you already discussed this in the class, and that's why I forgive me if that's the case. Yes.
Thank
Because
you
for so many years. Yes, because I was just thinking he fell down for so many years.
Yeah, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for that question, Prabhuji. Unfortunately, I did not touch upon that aspect. In fact, throughout my discussion, that is one missing piece, Prabhuji. Why does the Lord, even with Brahma, with all his prayers, why is it the Lord doesn't completely protect it? Is it because of free will? Uh, don't know, so I really don't know the answer, Prabhuji. That's a big gaping hole. I'll be really, if somebody can enlighten me, it would be so wonderful.
Well, maybe what you're saying, that he does protect, but he, that's why at the end he sees the Vishnu Dutas,
Yeah.
and he does protect, but he
Mhm.
lets, you're saying free will, I think, but he lets experience before he protects. In other words, he lets him
Yeah.
learn, so that he doesn't, he obviously has some desires, some vasana, some subconscious, unconscious desires that he
Correct.
needs to try to purify and
Yeah.
uh, remove, maybe
Yeah.
before
Yeah.
the
Say it again, Prabhuji. It was getting cut.
well, that is his protection in some ways, before the Lord can
Oh, okay. Yeah.
before the Lord can actually like fully protect him. Like you use the word fully protect him.
Mhm.
One sense, he has to allow Ajamil to
Mhm.
undergo some purification.
Yeah, Prabhuji, you may be right. Thank you for bringing that. Again, I don't know for sure, but I also remember Gajendra Moksha in this particular instance, Lord Indradyumna, I don't really understand why he had to fall down and, become the elephant king, but he had to go through so much before the Lord actually comes, The Lord comes in a rush to protect his devotees, that his devotee. And that is one example. The other example is, when the four Kumaras go to visit, uh, the Lord in Vaikuntha, uh, the two doorkeepers, Jai and Vijay, they stop him, they stop the four Kumaras, and the Lord knows instantly that his two doorkeepers, his devotees, are in trouble, and he comes running the same way, and he tries to protect them. So there are, you know,
Mm.
so these are some of the cases that come to my mind, but I really don't know that the 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 core that you're talking about. Like why is it he allows it? Maybe like you said, there are anarthas, or maybe there is the free will, like the desire that has to be quenched. So that's why probably the Lord allows all of that to happen.
That example of Jay and Vijay is such a nice example, actually. Says he rushes there for their protection before they get violated by the Brahmana's curse. He actually comes there for their protection. That's another example of protection. Gajendra is an example. Lord
Mhm.
Brahma and Tamil is an
Yeah.
example. Lord
Mhm.
protecting devotee. Ah,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
yet he times it in such a way that he's just a few moments right after Jay and Vijay are cursed by the Kumaras. So it's all by his will because he wants to
Mhm.
make his pastimes happen. So it's not like Krishna couldn't have been there, just like that. He can
Mhm.
manifest himself in a less than a flash of a second, for that matter, right? But he does that
Yeah.
in such a way that he's
Mhm.
coming there for their protection, but at the same
Yeah.
time, he does it, times it in such a way that those pastimes happen. So that's the amazing part.
Yeah.
But related to that, I also have a question for you. I've always struggled with this whole concept of why do we have to deal with these vicious entities around us? Brahma is in the mode of goodness when he's creating this.
Mhm.
He's the secondary creator,
Mhm.
but at the same time, he's given all the options, all the controls,
Mhm.
for him to be able to create a creation that is completely filled with joyous and pure entities in the mode of goodness. So why do we, end up, or why does he end up creating even the vicious entities? Why did he have to create those 5 features that you spoke about?
Yeah.
So I've struggled with that, Prabhu, and maybe you can elaborate on that. The only other thing that comes to my mind is that this is, it's a cycle, and Brahma keeps coming back again and again and again and again. And it's, at the end of the cycle, obviously, all the living entities are absorbed into the body of Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. And so all the karmic reactions are also in a state of dormancy. And then they come to fruition, when the next Brahma takes on. And therefore, it has to start with some of that. And if that is true, and again, this is just pure speculation on my end, but if that is true, you would think that Brahma would have a program of continuous improvement, right? So he would try and increase the number of good living entities so that the karmic reactions can decrease. But then we see, the enthalpy of the whole system is just going, increasing and increase with every yuga cycle, and it's just making things worse for all of us. So, any comments, any thoughts on what's going on?
Prabhuji, wonderful. You not only pose the question, you put the answer also right in front of me. So it's like Rasgulla. So, you also use a lot of scientific terms, but that's good, Prabhuji. Now, for example, we all know, anyone who is in, project world, Jira, we use the Jira board, we have the backlog. You complete the sprint. When you complete the sprint, there are stories that are completed, stories that are not completed. Anything that is not completed is carried over to the next sprint. That's exactly what's happening with all the vicious entities. Probably. I may be wrong, correct me, but what happens is while the universe is active, um, various living entities elevate themselves, and there are other set of entities which also, degrade themselves to various other vicious forms. Now, like you already mentioned, what happens is then final devastation comes in, and or even partial devastation when all the living entities go back into Garbhodakashayi Vishnu's body, and with the next creation, they all come back. So they all have to start where they left off. It's like the Jira board or even the bank account. You can freeze the bank account, but when you unfreeze it, it'll start where exactly you left it. So that is the reason. That's at least my understanding. And then coming to why does Brahma not have the, what do you say, continuous improvement program? Brahma actually has. In fact, our own lineage that we follow for spiritual upliftment is Brahma's lineage. So that is, of course, it's a nice separation from the creative activities that he does, but there is that process. Then there are other 3 processes also, who are also involved in continuous improvement. But fortunately or unfortunately, this is a place where all living entities think that they are here to enjoy themselves, and somehow or the other, though the enjoyment that we have is only so much, and the miseries that we have is like more than what I can show with my hands, still every living entity believes that there is enjoyment here. And that is, until that desire is exhausted, probably all living entities will continue to either elevate or degrade themselves. And, Brahma will unfortunately have to deal with all these living entities. I don't know if I made myself.
Makes sense, Prabhu. Thank you. I know these explanations are very difficult to understand and absorb. So we have to accept with what we have and what we're given. Thanks to Lord Brahma, and thanks to all the karmic reactions, karmic activities that we performed in our previous lives. We are where we are right now.
Yes, probably. And the funny part of that all is, it's one different thing when the acharyas describe, they know how to properly put it. The moment, somebody like me says something, there will be at least 10 different examples that negate what I've said. So,
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I think it's late. Please
Yeah.
accept my humble. Very nice class. I was thinking this karma. The lotus itself is the coming out of the. It's an expression of the karma. Is it?
Mhm.
You said it is a karma bank, lotus.
Coming
So
out of the lotus is not coming out of
that
karma, Mataji.
lotus, I thought I heard you say
Yeah,
it is.
Mataji. The lotus is the complete, in the universe, the sum total of all the karmas are actually, it's like when you are churning the buttermilk, all the cream comes at the top, butter comes to the top. It's the same way.
Yeah.
All the entire karmic activities are there in the form of the lotus, and
Yeah.
now every living entity will get a little bit of whatever it's their thing.
Yeah, but so when we think about this, is quite fine with one day to the next day of Brahma, or the one Brahma to the next Brahma, we will have so much karmic reactions created and all that. But first time creation, when the first time Lord decides there be creation, then we don't have the living entities to start with. I mean, we don't have a previous cycle so how does that happen? I was thinking.
Yeah, Mataji.
I was thinking the first time creation. I
Yeah.
mean, as it goes on and on, we have the karma bank, so much impious, so that to give vent to the impious, Lord Brahma needs to create all this Mahamoha, Tamisra, Tadamisra, all that to give vent to those things. But so initially, first time creation, how did it happen? I was thinking. Just one extension of my thinking. That's all.
Mataji, wonderful question.
Mhm.
I think the issue is we are all studying under the Western, school of thought, and that is why things have to start at some point of time and end at some point of time for us. Whereas Sanatana means there was never a beginning, there was never an end. The Lord never had a beginning, the Lord never had an end, and the Lord has been continuously creating. It's not an obligation to Him, but whenever He wishes, He creates, and whenever He wishes, there is no creation. That is when He goes into Yoga Nidra. So, if what I understand is there is no first time. It's been going on. It will
That
keep on going on.
there is no first time, really. That's it.
Yes,
Yes, Prabhu. That makes sense. Okay,
okay.
that explains everything.
I know it's difficult because we all grow up in a different school of thought. So, thank you so much, Mataji.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
So, if I may add, thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah.
That was good. I was also thinking that, see, it all starts with some desire, right? We had some desire to enjoy for ourselves, and that's the reason we've fallen into this material world.
Correct.
And the laws and the governance of the material world are that, whatever you do will continue to deteriorate.
Right.
Everything in this material world deteriorates. So it's
Wonderful.
like going into a store, you buy a fruit, it's fresh,
Yeah.
and then you come home and you leave it on your countertop. 3 days later, it's decomposed and it's smelling, right? And you want to throw it
Yes.
away. So everything that you have continues to decay and decompose over time. It's that effect of time that is causing it to decompose in a way, right? So the
Yeah.
same thing, that's the thing that we're all governed by. Everything in our material universe, including our consciousness, including everything that we do, our activities are so influenced by these modes that we continue to deteriorate unless, as this purport, Srila Prabhupada clearly says, we have to be under the protection of the Lord to avoid all of this and be
Correct.
free from these karmic reactions. So that first thing happens because also I feel, the desire is what pulled us into this material. We put ourselves into that situation.
Yes.
And having come into this situation, we've only, been going down, 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 down over the millions of lifetimes in many, many ways.
Wonderful, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
I just one comment before we end, because I know you're quick, on Sri Vallabha Prabhu's comment on Krishna's timing. Just one thought on that Krishna saves Prahlad Maharaj at the bottom of he catches Prahlad Maharaj at the bottom of the cliff, pushed off, not on the top of the cliff. So I just
Wonderful.
Yes, Prabhu, that is true. That is true. He has that sense of timing. I mean, who am I to certify the Lord? So many of these Bollywood or even Hollywood movies try to capture that climax, as they call it, and they're so unsuccessful. When it comes to the Lord, it looks like they borrowed everything from Srimad Bhagavatam and other scriptures. So, thank you so much. If we don't have any other discussions, I really have a hard stop. I have to drive to office. So, thank you, everyone. Vancha kalpatarubhyasya krupa sindhobhyo vacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha ananta koti vaishnava. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so
Hare
much for a nice class and nice discussion. I know you are getting late.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.